Dear Sir, in some of the wonderful conversations I've had with you, the Christian religion was sometimes our topic. And I promised you that one day or another I would provide you my views of it. My views are the result of a life of inquiry and reflection. To the corruptions of Christianity, I am indeed opposed. But not to the genuine precepts of Jesus himself. I am a Christian only in the sense in which Jesus wished anyone to be, sincerely attached to his doctrines, in preference to all others. Ascribing to himself every human excellence, and believing he never claimed any other. At the short intervals since these conversations, when I could justifiably abstract my mind from public affairs, this subject has been under my contemplation. But the more I considered it, the more it expanded beyond the measure of either my time or information. In the moment of my late departure from Monticello, I received a little treatise of Socrates and Jesus compared. The treatise became a subject of reflection while on the road, and I was occupied with nothing else. The result of my contemplation was to arrange a syllabus of an estimate of the comparative merits of Christianity with the likes of ancient Greek philosophy. And this very syllabus I will now send to you, and in confiding it with you, I know it will not be exposed to the malignant perversions of those who make every word from me a spectacle for new misrepresentations. Moreover, I feel inclined to mention I am averse to the communication of my religious beliefs to the public, because it would encourage those who try to seduce public opinion for the purpose of creating a false authority over individual beliefs, which the laws have rightly prohibited. And here is my syllabus titled Syllabus of an Estimate of the Doctrines of Jesus Compared with Those of Others. In a comparative view of the ethics of the enlightened nations of old, of the Jews, and of Jesus, no notice should be taken of the corruptions of reason among the ancients, to wit, the idolatry and superstition of the vulgar, nor of the corruptions of Christianity by the learned among its professors. Take a fair look at the moral teachings instructed by the most respected schools of ancient philosophy. Part 1. Thoughts on the ancient philosophers. Their precepts related chiefly to ourselves, and the government of those passions which, unrestrained, would disturb our tranquility of mind. In this branch of philosophy, they were really great. When it came to teaching our duties to others, their ideas were brief and incomplete. They focused on relationships with family and friends, and promoted patriotism or love for one's country as the most important duty. Toward our neighbors and fellow countrymen, they taught justice, but rarely included them within the circle of kindness. Even less did they teach peace, charity, and love for all people, or embrace the whole of family of mankind with kindness. Part 2. Thoughts on the Jewish people. Their system was deism, that is, the belief in only one God. But their ideas of him and of his attributes were degrading and injurious. Their ethics were not only lacking, but they were often irreconcilable with the sound dictates of reason and morality. For example, they respect intercourse with those around them, yet they are repulsive and antisocial respecting other nations. They were in need of reformation in an imminent degree. Part 3. Thoughts on Jesus. In this state of things among the Jews, Jesus appeared. His parentage was obscure, his condition poor, his education null, his natural endowments great, his life correct and innocent. He was meek, benevolent, patient, firm, disinterested, and of the sublimest eloquence. The disadvantages under which his doctrines appear are remarkable. Like Socrates and Epictetus, he wrote nothing himself. But he had not, like them, a scribe to write for him. I name not one such as Plato, who only used the name of Socrates to cover the whimsies of his own brain. On the contrary, all the educated people of his country, who were entrenched in power and wealth, opposed him because they feared that his labors would undermine their advantages. And the task of writing down his life and doctrines fell on uneducated and ignorant men, who wrote from memory long after the events had occurred. As often is the fate of those who attempt to enlighten and improve mankind, he became an early victim of jealousy and the combined power of religious and political authorities. This happened when he was around 33 years old, before his reason had reached its full potential, and his preaching, which lasted only about 3 years, did not provide enough time to fully develop a complete system of morals. Hence, the doctrines which he truly delivered were defective as a whole, and fragments of what he did deliver have come to us mutilated, misstated, and often unintelligible. teachings of Jesus have been further distorted by the corruptions of divisive followers, who have found an interest in sophisticating and perverting the simple doctrines he taught, by engrafting on them the mysticism of a Greek philosopher, breaking them down into subtleties, and obscuring them with unnecessary jargon, until they have caused good men to reject the entire message in frustration, even viewing Jesus himself as an impostor. Despite these disadvantages, the moral system he left behind, if restored in its true form and spirit, is, in my estimation, the most perfect and sublime teaching ever taught to humanity. The question of his being a member of the Godhead, or in direct communication with it, claimed for him by some of his followers and denied by others, is irrelevant to this current discussion, which is focused solely on the intrinsic merits of his doctrines. He set right the deism of the Jews, confirming them in their belief of only one God, and giving them juster notions of his attributes and government. His moral doctrines, relating to kindred and friends, were more pure and perfect than those of the most correct of the philosophers, and greatly more so than those of the Jewish people. And they went far beyond both in inculcating universal philanthropy, not only to kindred and friends, to neighbors and countrymen, but to all mankind, gathering all into one family under the bonds of love, charity, peace, shared needs, and mutual respect and support. Further exploration of this will clearly demonstrate the peculiar superiority of Jesus' teachings over all others. The teachings of ancient philosophy and of the Hebrew law focused only on outward actions. He, however, delved into the hearts of men. He pushed his scrutinies into the heart, erected his tribunal in the region of his thought, and purified the waters at the source. He taught emphatically the doctrine of a future state of heaven and hell, which was either doubted or disbelieved by the Jewish people, and he wielded it with effectiveness as an important incentive, supplementary to the other motives to moral conduct. I too have made a wee little book from the same materials, from the Gospels, which I call the Philosophy of Jesus. It is a paradigm of his doctrines, made by cutting the texts out of the book and arranging them on pages of a blank book in a certain order of time or subject. I have never seen a more beautiful or precious morsel of ethics. It is a document in proof that I am a real Christian. That is to say, I am a disciple of the doctrines of Jesus. Very different from the Platonists, who call me infidel and themselves Christians, and themselves preachers of the gospel, while they draw all their characteristic dogmas from what its author never said nor saw. They have compounded from the heathen mysteries a system beyond the comprehension of man, of which the great reformer of the vicious ethics and deism of the Jews, were he to return on earth, would not recognize one feature.